all parts of the world. And so we also display an important issue from an ethical issue, which is to do with solidarity and cooperation. So all of us here, many of us come so many times that we've all become, over the last 46 or 1.5 years, we know each other from various parts of the world, from all the continents. We're going to have people here today. And so we come from the various areas that we've been traversing over this pandemic that has affected, that has given a lot of problems, but it's also brought all of us together. There's always something good about it, and we get to see and we get to have this solidarity that we're all in this together. Now, before I say anything more, let me introduce Professor Mary Matthew, who is the co-chair, and she moderates. And then we have Professor Colonel Derek D'Souza, who coordinates this and also is the moderator of the chat box and so forth. So I'm going to before I go further, I'll give it to Mary to address you.
Nothing.
Over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Professor Russell, and good day to all of you. It's lovely to see all of you back again. Some of you are familiar faces, some of you are new. To all our panelists and our speakers today, it's going to be a very interesting session. Just to let you know, I am Dr. Mary Matthew. I'm a pathologist by profession and with a background in ethics, medical ethics, and law. And today is our 46th webinar. We had started this during the time when the pandemic started, and these series of webinars have kept us all together. And it has, it was actually a source of solace and comfort for majority of us. And we have made a lot of friends during these webinars. And I also want to tell our panelists and speakers, we do have a large number of students who are attending these webinars. So thank you once again. And I will hand it over to Dr. Russell. Back to you.
Thank you, Mary and Derek. I'll have it to Colonel Derek, Professor Colonel Derek D'Souza, who's going to address you too.
Thank you, everyone. As I said, we keep adding to our family and friends every week, and it's wonderful to have you all, especially the new faces and the old friends. It's really become a small little family that we have going here, and welcome to all and hope to see you all in future editions as well. For those who are presenting and would be part of the panel discussion, you can access the chat box because I have made you all co-hosts. So in case there are any questions or comments from any of the students or the other participants that we have, please feel free to address those questions directly, especially when you are not speaking or you're not on screen. For the benefit of the students as well, you may also share any files or any additional reading material or any references that you feel the students or even the other faculty, because a lot of them are medical teachers. So you can share it in the chat box and we will be able to increase the overall content. So we have the meeting going on, but simultaneously we have a chat box running. So part of the discussion or part of the questions you can add there, or maybe you can even put in some of your comments or questions there yourself, and somebody else could probably share their experience as well. I have also put in the chat box a link right now, which is the link to the live streaming of the on YouTube of this meeting. So the recording will also be available there later on, and you can share that as well. So in case someone has problem joining this Zoom meeting or cannot watch it right away, please share that link with them and they should be able to access it. Professor Mary Matthew will call you in order, and at that time you can share your screen. And good to have you all. Back to you, Dr. Russell.
Derek, just a moment. Are we recording? Is
Yes,
the recording on?
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Derek. Right, very good. I want to acknowledge some of our committee and so forth that are here. Dr. Lincoln Ferrero from Latin America, where the president of the Confederation of Medical Associations of Latin America and Caribbean is here. Welcome. Lincoln is also going to be a panel member as he has been here many times. Welcome, Deborah, from Brazil. Now, we have today, first let me say that we picked today is a very important topic or a theme, which is close to all of you here. Many of us here are speakers, and many of the colleagues here are this is an important area, very, very close to many people's heart. Volunteering and the volunteering organizations. But there's much, as we know, this pandemic has taken the whole world. I'm in Melbourne. We had a fairly good time initially. Right now, Australia, we are in lockdown. The Delta is, we have New South Wales, Victoria, we're all in lockdown, the Australian Capital Territory. But this is going on. But again, this area of volunteering is very important. And I just had a look at so some of the studies that have been done, and looked at why do people want to volunteer. And it's interesting. Most of the studies highlighted that most of the people wanted to give back, and others wanted to help other individuals for doing something. And interestingly, it also enables those to cope with sad accounts. And of course, that we hear all the time, a lot of negative things are happening. But I try to tell you that while that's so, we coming together in solidarity has been a great one of the positive effects of this. But before I go on, I just thought I should bring a very interesting study that was published, Pillavin and Siegel. They looked at this, and what's interesting, there's a term called mattering, okay? And they found that there's a distinction between, the correlation between volunteering and well-being, or well-being. And in well-being, we have what's called a hedonic well-being, is the happiness and satisfaction of feeling good when one, with your situation, and it comes from all different parts of life. But there's another important called eudaimonic well-being, right? And this well-being is feeling good about oneself through serving others. And that's an example here from a range of activities. And what the studies have shown, this volunteering allows one to feel good about oneself, but from the eudaimonic well-being, which is coming from serving others. And this relates to the notion of what is called mattering, a term used to depict feeling valued and able to add value. Mattering refers to a perception that we have a role in this world. And that's where the solidarity comes in, whereby we feel noticed, we feel valued, and indeed giving value to others. And of course, it's been linked to better self-esteem, self-acceptance, and much better mental health state in the current situation. So I thought I should bring this important thing here. We've got a wonderful panel and speakers all doing this, but I wanted to show there is evidence from some of the studies that this has. In fact, this builds what is called the social capital, an important part of social capital. And it's a potential way to boost well-being in a time of crisis. And maybe it increases the people's sense of mattering through volunteering, and it has a particular benefit to members of the population, enabling them to establish a strong social role and ties. So with that as a start today, why this is important, we from our published data and evidence, we then move on to this program today. We have a very exciting program as we always do. We cover most all the different regions of the world. Today, we have a very distinguished international panel members. Some of them are also going to be presenters. So let me just go through that. We have Professor Dr. Roland Pochet from Belgium, who's the Secretary General of the Belgian Brain Council. And of course, Dr. Roland is also going to present complexities in ethics during the COVID pandemic and from a volunteer's position. Now, we have Dr. Captain Ritu Biani, who has been on this program before. And Dr. Ritu is the founder of volunteer organization, an NGO organization called it's Highways Infinite. She's also a cancer warrior and has been a cancer and health campaigner pan-India, and has had a winner of the Limca Book of Record holder on for several years. And she's also going to speak to she's going to present today on confronting challenges during the pandemic, an overview. So that's from India. So we have from Belgium, then we have Dr. Luciana da Silveira, who's from Brazil. Again, someone is passionate about volunteering and is involved in the Fraternity Without Borders. And she's going to bring in volunteering in times of the COVID, her experience and report from Brazil. And we have Susan Ventris Field, who's the CEO or Chief Executive of Welsh Centre for International Affairs in United Kingdom, who's also going to be a very distinguished panel member, but will be speaking to us. And we'll have, as I already said, Dr. Lincoln Ferreira, who is a surgeon and is the president of the Medical Associations of the Caribbean and Latin America, who's also involved in some of the volunteering organizations doing some wonderful work in that part of the world. So he's going to be introducing us and telling us about that. And we have Ms. Flavia Merlin, is it, from Romania, who's another has a big project which they have been doing on volunteering, and she has a team, and she's going to represent and tell us from Romania. And finally, we also have Mr. Chan from Hong Kong, who's a social worker, but the chair of the Asthma Society of Hong Kong, who will be a panel member giving us. So we've sort of brought most of the regions of the world, all the continents in here, or at least we did have someone from Africa, but it didn't get confirmed. All right, so with that, and we'll come back again. So we're going to start with our presentations. Can we start with Professor Captain Ritu Biani, if you will start, and then we'll have Dr. Roland Poche, and then Dr. Luciana, and then finally, and then Susie Fields. All right. So let's over to you, Dr. Ritu.
Yeah, thank you. Is it open?
Derek, sorry, your screen, is it? Your screen sharing?
No, you'll have to share.
You'll have to share screen again. What you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now?
Just that, yeah.
Yeah. Coming.
So this is fine?
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Full screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very happy evening, and thank you for getting me back on this lovely evening of having the theme of volunteers and volunteer organizations. My sincere thanks to Dr. Russell and Dr. Mary and Colonel Derek, sir. You might have to pardon me my voice, and maybe I might become a little breathless because I'm down with the flu since morning and just managed to come here with God's grace.
Sorry, I didn't say that. I want to thank you, Dr. Ritu. I know you have been unwell and you're taking paracetamol and so forth, but we really appreciate you coming here and giving this, giving your presentation here. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, sir. So my topic today is confronting challenges during the pandemic as an overview. Before that, I would like to I would like to convey that I am a founder and project in charge of Highways Infinite. And as the name suggests, it's a borderless drive, empowering people, impacting lives before, through, and beyond cancer. I'm also a cancer warrior for last 2 decades, having had breast cancer in 2000. And fortunately, with all the experiences, I have been able to be a resource person on cancer and health campaigns. Though health is an overall objective, but my core focus has been on cancer. And our mission is empowering people who have all minimum, no access to awareness, preventive and promotive resources. Has it changed there?
You'll have to bring the cursor on the screen and now change.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Empowering people who have all minimum, no access to awareness, preventive and promotive resources in the field of cancer. And our mission mainly is bridging grassroots, which includes healthy people as well as cancer affected people, to knowledge, resources and expertise across the continuum of cancer, from prevention to end of life care and beyond. Our vision is to help reduce the incidence of advanced stage diagnosis and to change the mindset of people towards cancer, and finally to celebrate survivorship. So as we all know, that cancer has been one of the top most complex issue much before COVID came in. I had always taken up and confronted challenges, be it hardcore adventures or a complex subject like cancer, to find feasible solutions. So when COVID pandemic hit somewhere in March 2020 in India, sort of automatically we started gearing up for the challenges and to see what we can do, because I'm not a trained, I can't do anything inside the hospital, but I definitely can do something outside the hospital. So we are all witness to the way the pandemic turned the world topsy-turvy, the fabric of the challenges, the losses are just too many and are interwoven. So today I will align my talk mainly on the following challenges, what faced, and as a volunteer, as an NGO, and how we try to tackle. So it will be like accessibility to medical and non-medical aid, which will be revolving around home, hospital, non-COVID diseases. Oh, sorry. Okay, I forgot to change this. Homebound, pardon me. Homebound rural workforce, which was like a major setback in India at the start of the lockdown, and to those whose livelihoods were affected. And of course, if time permits, I will put a few words on the psychosocial impact. So accessibility to medical aid. Now, initially, I will just quickly tell you about the non-COVID part because we were dealing with the non-COVID part and cancer took a backseat. Sadly, the pandemic could not stop cancer cells from multiplying. So the delays in treatment was saddening. It took its toll. There were inaccessibility to doctors, hospitals, labs, medicines, investigations, public and private transports, accommodations, and so on. And India is highly populated, very vast. So there are very few full-fledged cancer hospitals, which in few weeks, they started, like operating on rotation basis, and it was easy for them because there were many oncologists there. But most of the hospitals had department where there were few oncologists. And if one fell sick, everybody would look, the whole department used to shut down for weeks, and the cycle used to continue if somebody had tested COVID positive. So it was very difficult for non-medical, non-COVID patients to reach to the hospitals. As the waves peaked up, the hospitals got converted. The health professionals also from various departments got diverted to towards the COVID side. So our field work and in-person activities reduced or stopped during the pandemic as an NGO. Talking about accessibility to medical and non-medical aid, again, for home, hospital, and others in between, especially those affected with COVID and either as a disease form or otherwise. So preventive resources like masks, sanitizers disappeared from the shelves, costs were escalated, there was shortage, unavailability, delays in getting supportive facilities, critical beds, O2, plasma treatment, medicines, ambulances, and so on. Also, there was shortage or unavailability of human touch and shoulders to support the people physically and emotionally in person. Of course, livelihoods, dreams also went for a toss. So homebound rural force, popularly known as migrants, though we don't like the word, we call them shramiks. That was a major setback during the first lockdown in India. And these people in their reverse migration were lugging only with bare minimum which they could carry on their back, on their head or hand, which also included babies and children. So we could not give them excess amount of food or food packets so that they could sustain their journeys. And the vast number had never been seen before, except probably during the partition period of India. Their sufferings and hardships were intense. Fortunately, the overall fatalities during the migration was less. The third challenge was the psychosocial impact. All of us, we are already aware of these, but I'll quickly just point them. Isolation at home, lonely hospital stays, depression, overcrowding, house spaceless, routine disruption, helplessness, limited people for funerals, guilt. You cannot meet your loved ones. You cannot give them final goodbyes. So for all those who were COVID affected, it was a nightmare that will always be remembered, possibly by 3 generations. Coming to confronting the challenges and solutions as a volunteer, as an individual, and as a collective efforts by various groups, volunteers, NGOs. Initially, we needed an essential duty pass and police permission, and which we quickly got it because we were working for people, and in turn, we were helping the government and minimize and support their work or minimize their work. So the local, what I personally, on a personal level, I could manage going out station for cancer patients even during intense lockdown period, personally driving and delivering essential medical supplies, COVID protective gears, and to food kits to those patients who could not come to the hospitals. We also, during that time, helped navigate patients, trying to find out the nearest functioning cancer hospitals, liaising with doctors, and finally, when everything matched, because the patients could not go to the hospital, we created specific WhatsApp group with the patient and caregivers and healthcare team for seamless communication. So even if they could not take the treatment or they could not come for investigations, at least for 1 or 2 months, the doctors were able to give online guidance as to what to do and or which is the nearest hospital. And the nearest hospital could be like 3 hours to maybe 10 hours to maybe 24 hours, a cancer hospital, what I'm talking about. The support widened as the spirit of human beings as volunteers peaked. Individuals, groups, NGOs reached out independently, collectively, or worked with government agencies. So we, on a collective note, we started distribution of protective gears, which was in the first lockdown. You will not believe, I myself did not get a mask or a sanitizer for 15 days of lockdown. And I'm not a practitioner, so I didn't have anything in my office also. So you can imagine that how things just vanished. And not just vanished, even to make new masks or to collect things, the shops were closed. So we used to do something in India we call like jugaad. You know, like you go and try with the help of authorities, open some shop, get some cloth material. And because surgical mask distribution was impossible, they were not available and they were not a feasible option at that time. So 2-layered mask or a 3-layered mask was sort of something is better than nothing. So sanitary aid items, ready to eat food, these were also given to homebound rural workforce, essential duty workers, volunteers, homeless people, etc. Communications between patients in ICU and relatives. That was and is still a big problem, especially when the patients, COVID patients enter the ICU and they are totally cut off, which is very detrimental socially, mentally, emotionally. And though I sort of thought of something because I remembered from a personal note when my father was admitted in ICU, not for COVID, but few years back, he always wanted to see our face or he wanted us around. So I was wondering what these people who were inside totally cut off with the families can't see them, they can't see the family. So if not with all hospitals, but in some hospitals, I tried to get the lead medical superintendent and all, and then we requested the families, small things there, of course, to make digital cards or to write get well soon wishes or to send an audio recording or a video recording to the patient who is admitted. And as and when the doctors could manage to show them, they would show them in the hospital. And that sort of reduced the little guilt feeling a little bit that we are not connected. Animal welfare and care was something which was also there, though we always talk only of what humans suffered, but there were animals also. And my daughter is a veterinary doctor, so I have to put this point, not just because she was involved, but there were lots of people which I saw when I used to go on the roads, even at midnight at 12 and 1, who used to feed the animals. So the first lockdown and wave, the volunteers came out, fully charged, with full precautions and helped patients, people, even people who were not patients. But in second wave, which was very intense, most of us worked and connectivity was done using social media. Now, this is where a collectiveness, like an interdependent collective interaction with different groups and NGOs helped. It was not like one person doing it or one NGO doing it. Because what we faced as volunteers or even as whatever we wanted to help was when social media does give a lot of good things. For us, it became like in the army, we call it like a war room, where strategies were formulated and the demand and supply issues were sorted out. But at the same time, the clutter was so much of fake news, fake donors, fake appeals. It took time to sort them out. And this was possible only when the groups were large. So collectively, people collected. It wasn't like one NGO or one person or one group. And we had different teams who dedicated their time for these things. Like, for example, there was a front-end team for coordination, a calling team for data collection and verification, and a backup team for maintaining a repository and follow-up on close-ups. Now, these included anything and everything, starting from plasma and blood requests, to hospital bed to ambulance requests, to oxygen cylinder, concentrator requests, medicines, even tiffins for the patients or tiffins for people who could not make their food. online consultation, psychosocial support, etc., and financial support, working with other groups and NGOs. So it was like a collective universal responsibility taken by volunteers and like-minded people. We were not always successful. The demand was too heavy, and especially when it peaked. We spend, even as people, even a person like me who has faced so many challenges, and we have spent sleepless nights. So it is not just things affecting the people who are really affected by COVID, but even volunteers and people who were trying to help, because there was a sense of helplessness which used to come. But then, because we were as a team, we would boost each other, and okay, whatever we can do, we will do, was an attitude. And that team spirit actually really helped a lot. There were times when we remember that even 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock we used to get calls from our volunteers. I don't know how to help this person. And the help was not only related to Pune, but the help was, the appeals came from all over India. And one of the best case, not best case, one of the case I picked up from among so many appeals was an ECMO patient, which we had to shift from Ranchi, Jharkhand to for ECMO therapy to Secunderabad. And believe me, like why I'm saying I may be taking half a minute extra, but how doctors also helped us, unknown people helped us. I don't know where all the ECMO therapies were. So I just put it in my doctors group, say Army doctors group and other doctors group, that where all is the ECMO therapy, and got the details. Somebody had their postmates or somebody had some link connections there where we could directly speak to the doctors or the hospital person to ask whether the bed is available. And one case particularly I clearly remember, within 3 hours, we were informed the bed is available. The patient has to be flown from Ranchi, Jharkhand to Secunderabad Secunderabad, and the air ambulance. And in 3 hours, the patient's family had to raise some 28,000 rupees for the 28 lakh rupees for the air ambulance, and 10 lakh rupees as an advance to the hospital. And imagine, like, even I will never be able to raise that much money. Forget about 3 hours, 1 day, 2 days. I mean, even if I break everything, I will not be able to arrange that. But then, luckily, in fact, I jumped in, and I'm sure a lot of people have done like this. I said, look, the person is a government servant. He will definitely pay it, even if he's not able to pay that entire amount in one go. It is my surety. I don't know why I said that. Tomorrow, if he didn't pay, it would have come on my head. But then I thought it will not happen like this. And that is how things were linked up. Then came a 45 lakh rupees for lung transplant, which was like a thing, but then people helped. There were people who couldn't come out but wanted to help. They helped in cash or in kind. There were people who could go only till certain limit to help personally. And there were people who were firing the gun from other shoulder, but they were equipping those shoulders to move forward and help and go and help people. So it is very difficult to put all the things in one go, because I used to think cancer was the biggest challenge, like an emperor of disease, what Siddharth Mukherjee has put. But I think COVID, not only as a disease, but in all ways has affected all of us. There is a... my 8 minutes are over. I think so. Yeah. So thank you so much. And I know the COVID shadows are still lurking. And I also know there are still miles to go under the blue skies. And we need to be cohesive, whether I'm in Pune or anywhere in the world, to keep helping and to keep doing, keeping the spirit of volunteerism high. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ritu Biani. Thank you very much for that interesting presentation on a very important area. And thank you for your continued work in this, with what you're doing, particularly with the cancer, through your Highways Infinite. So now let me bring to you Dr. Roland Fauché from the Belgian, from the Secretary General from the Belgian Brain Council, who's going to present the complexities in ethics during the COVID pandemic from a volunteer's perspective. Over to you, Dr. Roland.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
So
I think you have some slides, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just sharing that
Good.
screen. Give me a second.
Thank you, Derek. So, dear Professor Russell, dear colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present some aspects of the volunteers organization in Europe during this pandemic. I'm sorry, but the slides I have is a little bit distorted. Is it normal? Can everybody see the slides?
Yes, we can see it.
Derek, is it straight? Is there, I think you have to increase the,
Yeah, just a minute.
yeah, good, right. Now full.
Thank you.
Do you want to?
Is that
Yeah,
visible
now
now?
it's great. Now it's correct. Yeah,
Right.
good.
So before entering the topic, and because we are also with the students, I would like to share with you what is the meaning of 3 keywords I'm going to use and which apply to the health domain. The first, next slide, please, is 3 words. So first is crisis. Crisis in healthcare, it's a substantial change in the usual process of healthcare operation and the level of care it is possible to deliver, which is made necessary. Volunteer is a person who gives time and labor without being paid to a charity, an organization, or directly for other outside their own household. Ethics is a very large domain which covers many concepts, so I will focus on one of the aspects. Ethics is needed when there is a potential to violate fundamental rights of freedom set out in the European Union, because I'm European, in the European Union Charter of Fundamental Rights and European Convention on Human Rights. Next slide, please. Well, to introduce the pandemia versus the regular volunteer association, I submit to you what the North Island government agency called NIDirect has published. Anyone can volunteer during the coronavirus pandemic. However, you should volunteer from home where possible. Well, this is a very nice sentence, but it's far from a pragmatic approach. And this is to illustrate that regular NGO have some kind of problems in this pandemic. So to come back to this agency, NIDirect is the official government website for Northern Ireland citizens. It aims to make it easier to access government information and services. It does this by working closely with Northern Ireland departments and other public bodies to collate their key information based on users' need. Okay, that's very nice. But this example for me illustrates straightforward the NGO limitation in volunteering activity. And this suscitated a reaction that was the emergence of a shift from regular NGO to direct volunteering that I will here call a new pool of volunteers. This emergence was observed in several European countries, and I just cite here the example of Flanders, a region from Belgium, in which 22% were new volunteers. This number was extracted from a study made by Leslie Hastings, associate professor in sociology at the University of Ghent, Belgium. Next slide. Such a move or shift created, of course, disequilibria, such as the oversupply of spontaneous helpers, lack of training with risk in safety, such as contamination in this case. But on the other hand, it allowed the creation of new digital platforms made by several partners, including governments, new NGOs, and also informal social media groups. This was particularly observed in Denmark. Positive consequences appeared, such as allowing a wide mobilization, a better dissemination of good information on safety and health regulation, and very important, a design factor enhancing willingness to volunteer again. This is really what I point as ethical and constitute a virtuous circle. Next slide. Now, if we look into the profile of those new active volunteers, it appears that, at least in Europe, women were more numerous than men. I quote here Switzerland, in which 74% of new volunteers were women. Another insight in the recruitment indicate that it reflects the general profile of European volunteers in terms of an overrepresentation of dominant status, resource-rich population groups based on education, income, labor market participation, and social network. Now, as far as ethics is concerned, and maybe my term complexity was a little bit was exaggerated, I would like to stress here that ethics is needed when there is a potential to result in significant harm, psychological and or physical, includes highly vulnerable people, use unacceptable risk, do not preserve privacy. Well, when I come back to pandemic, I must admit, and this is my personal feeling, that to my point of view, there are currently in Europe no major ethical problems raised by the pandemic. But of course, I'm open to discussion for that. I thank you very much. I try to keep on time. I'm done.
You're
Dr.
muted.
Russell, you're muted.
You're muted, Dr. Russell.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you very much, and for keeping on time and for that overview of Europe. And you'll have an opportunity to discuss it during the discussion that we're going to have. And now we'll invite Dr. Luciana da Silveira from Brazil, where she's from a Fraternity Without Borders, and she's going to present on the volunteering in the time of COVID-19 experience, her experience, possibly the report from Brazil. Over to you, Dr. Luciana.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, everybody. At least here in Brazil, we have just had breakfast. I would like to greet the presenters who precede me with magnificent presentation, Dr. and Professor Holland, Dr. Hito, and to the lead and chair webinar, Dr. and Professor Russo, with all the presenters, panelists, people here to discuss with us. It's a great honor to be here with you, and I appreciate the invitation, sharing our experience, simple experiences about medical volunteer. My experience on social interaction and academic extension happens
Dr.
mainly
Luciana,
in three fronts.
sorry to interrupt
Hello?
you. Can you just make it full screen?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Please go ahead. Thank
That's
you.
very good.
Okay. In these three fronts, these are just examples of possible volunteering in this reinventation period we are living. Using a creative power safely, we can foster useful and rewarding actions. We can use sources rationally, use our social knowledge network to enable collective sponsorship remotely for some purpose. There are so many possibilities, as we can see. And one of my experiences is promoting fundraising, sponsoring, as we said here, Godmother, in two non-governmental organizations. As we can see here, one is called Banho de Amor in Portuguese, or Bath of Love, and Fraternity on the Streets. It's a non-governmental organization, Fraternity Without Borders, as it was said already. Both actions here in Brazil, in Belo Horizonte, when I live, aimed at human dignity, making food and personal hygiene possible, general guidelines on citizenship and health promotion for the homeless, as it can be imagined. During this pandemic time, the activities for the volunteers from the risk groups are very careful. We don't and didn't have any interaction face-to-face, and we try to deal with this health safety protocols. We all have something to donate: our time, attention, work, a smile, a phone call, money, and all these can be harnessed and amplified by joining efforts. It's essential to carry out accountability transparently, demonstrating the destination of the resources. By being careful about image rights, the integrity of the voluntary and the assisted person. These are important points we can discuss here in this panel. Another project in Brazil we are trying to help in some way is Brasil, coração que acolhe, as you can see in this image. In English, is Brazil, a heart that welcomes. In Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais, it's a chapter, Minas Gerais welcomes, dealing with the delicate issue of immigration in Brazil. Venezuelan immigrants who arrived to the north part of the country, needing support to internalize and articulate in a comprehensive assistance network. We welcome as volunteers who help to establish themselves in Belo Horizonte, in other cities in the country, and the case of study of families with multi-dimension evaluation, situation diagnosis, verifying the demands of health and social are the challenges that the hosts propose to organize. And instrumentalized families is about 3 to 6 months as mentors in culture exchange, material and affective support. There are problems and joys in all this trajectory. For me, it has been a continuous learning of resignation, respecting the others, understand our limitations and possibilities. There are several projects in Brazil, especially in the context of pandemic, as in humanitarian actions, in climate catastrophes, such as in Manaus recently, and in the chronic issues as in African countries. It is also possible and necessary to volunteer in the education and academic activities too, and integrate our ideals with others that have same dreams and realize simple actions. We do not need megalomaniac actions to be effective. Another example is evidence in COVID. These are the Instagram page. You can join if you want and to know more about it. It's an academic extension volunteer program to encourage the production and sharing of the content on social network, such as Facebook, or Twitter, Instagram as this one, with references of scientific quality based on evidence. And the aim of the actions are combating the fake news, as it was said too, and clarifying the population in general, especially encouraging undergraduate medical and health students to adapt scientific language, translating into accessible language with posts about clinical evidences on COVID-19. Now we are four professors coordinating 19 health students, undergraduate and then postgraduate. Last but not least, the most recent program that I fill my heart with joy and hope is a kidding with hard name, Alchemy of the Heart, as you can see here. This initiative came from a dear volunteer friends linked to Spiritist Medical Association of Minas Gerais, of which I am a part, in partnership with Brazilian Association Spiritist Psychology in Minas Gerais chapter. Begun in March 2021, we are already around 80 volunteers as doctors, psychologists, professionals from other areas that we welcome, direct the demands, and make possible individual psychotherapy of brief intervention, seeking take care of those who care. Every single action is online. There are about 60 assisted now, both frontline professionals from hospitals here in Belo Horizonte and Brumadinho, one sit near here, as well as caregivers, mothers and families of children with microcephaly associated with Zika virus from a research institute called IPESC, Belo Horizonte Project, also linked to Fraternity Without Borders. The consideration in my speech aim to publicize the actions of so many medical colleagues and other professionals who recognize the volunteering, the ethical obligation to interact with society and bring focus to adaptive actions to safe measures, protocols, of course. In addition, through extension activities, the dialogue between academy and community in which we are inserted is possible. The COVID-19 pandemic alerted us to the importance of the need to globalize quality information and humanitarian measures in the face of social and education discrepancies. I am available to share our challenges and dreams in this topic. Thank you very much. Sorry for the time. I don't know if it's already done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Silviana. Thank you very much for that, for your work, excellent work that's taking place with your organizations, Fraternity Without Borders. You're involved in so many projects there. Now we'll ask Susie Winters Field from from the Welsh Centre for International Affairs in United Kingdom to come up with her brief presentation on volunteers in Wales in United Kingdom. Over to you, Susie.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes, I can
Yes,
hear you.
very good.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be invited, and also thank you to the previous panelists. It's so inspirational to hear about the different projects around the world, so I'm delighted to hear those. So my name's Susie Ventures-Field. I'm the Chief Executive of a charity called the Welsh Centre for International Affairs, and we are based in Wales in the United Kingdom, and we try to inspire people across Wales to learn about and take action on global issues like inequality, poverty, climate change, refugees. And so we do that through things like global citizenship, supporting international solidarity, and helping people to get involved in issues like climate change and to mobilise people as well across Wales. I should just quickly say thank you to the WCVA, which is the national membership body for voluntary organisations, who helped me providing some of the data for this presentation. So I'm just very briefly going to run through the situation in Wales, a couple of personal experiences, and then I know people are keen to get to the discussion. So very briefly, some context. Wales is quite a small part of the UK, 3 million people, but quite a lot of volunteering and volunteering organisations. About 50,000, although many are very small micro charities, and usually around 1 million plus volunteers. So a lot of people in Wales volunteer in general, but often very informally. There's also quite a unique situation in Wales where there's a third sector scheme, which is a point of liaison between the Welsh Government and the voluntary sector, which is great for allowing access to government ministers and civil servants to allow quick responses, and that's been really important during the pandemic. So much like other presenters have shared, there was a big increase in people registering to volunteer during the pandemic, up from 500 to over 10,000 officially registered on one website. We saw a big increase in young volunteers. People were obviously required to stay home and local, and we had a furlough scheme in the UK where people were very fortunately paid to stay at home if they couldn't go to work. But also the school closures meant a lot of young people were keen to get involved and had more time on their hands. Just a few defining features of the volunteering here in Wales. It wasn't often new groups being set up, but it was small local community groups, choirs, community centres, community organisations, who very quickly adapted what they were doing to respond to the pandemic. And actually having existing networks and existing trust in the community was really important to their ability to respond and to safeguard volunteers and to support the local communities. It meant they could respond to the need in their communities. And the other factor as well as the face-to-face direct volunteering roles, there were also a lot more digital roles for people, particularly around supporting well-being and alleviating loneliness. So it seems like there's a huge positive effect of volunteering, as we've seen from others as well. People wanted to feel a sense of purpose, and were really missing a social connection because of the lockdown restrictions, and volunteering gave them that social connection. So for those who did volunteer, they were more protected from some of the worst effects of the pandemic. However, there were also people who had to stop volunteering because they were shielding, or they were protecting or looking after loved ones. And then that had a more detrimental impact on them, maybe increases in loneliness and less of a social connection. Because of the huge demand for volunteering, there were those who offered to volunteer and that wasn't taken up, and that could have a negative impact. But also for those real frontline volunteers, it can have a bit of a negative impact as well because of the stress of volunteering with those hard to reach and those difficult circumstances. But for communities, I think the first thing to say is that volunteering and voluntary organisations were absolutely essential here, and I think around the world, that gap wouldn't have been filled by governments or organisations or statutory organisations, particularly around the health and well-being of people, alleviating loneliness, but also equality. So making sure that there were those parts of the community that were harder to access still were included, and that was really important. Possibly also there was a little bit of a shift in the narrative about who can ask for help. People who never needed help before suddenly were isolating at home and needed help. So maybe a bit more openness about asking for help and getting involved, and also making sure people didn't get missed. So I very briefly wanted to say something about our experience. So we're not a frontline organisation. We went straight to working digitally during the pandemic. But we still felt it was really important to continue the work that we do. We thought it was really important to continue to give people, especially young people, rich global citizenship experiences, even at homeschool, because them feeling locked down was very detrimental to their mental health, and enabling them to connect with solidarity with people all over the world was incredibly important and impactful. We also wanted to continue to support movement building. Issues like refuge, sanctuary, climate change didn't go away, and we felt it was important to keep working on those, but also new issues like campaigning for a people's vaccine, making sure that not just the richest countries got the vaccinations first. Not sure we've been successful with that campaign, but one that's really important. But also that importance of connecting people in Wales with others around the world. So, for example, we had volunteers collecting first-person perspectives of people with COVID, and we found that those stories really gave people a sense of connection and motivated them and enabled them to think of new ways of working as well. So really quickly, just a few lessons. I think just highlighting again, supporting those grassroots organisations all the time, they are the reason that response was possible to COVID. They could be flexible and adapt, and smaller organisations are usually better able to adapt quickly, and statutory organisations were able to learn lessons from that. The relationship between the voluntary sector and their quick access to Welsh Government and civil servants meant that they could respond quickly and get funding out where it was needed. But I think this speaks to the earlier presentation as well, that exclusive focus on COVID-19, both in health but also in wider society, does bring longer term risks where other areas and other challenges were neglected during the pandemic. I'll stop there because I know we want to move to the discussion, but diolch yn fawr, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you very much for that very succinct presentation, giving us an overview of what's happening from your perspective, at least in Wales, with your program with the Welsh Centre for International Affairs. Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to the next part, where we'll all have you, all of you again. Roland, Ritu, Susie, and Luciana will join our Dr. Lincoln Lopez Ferreira, who I've already introduced to you, will now take part in the alongside with Flavia Merlin from Romania. So we have this. I'm not sure what's happened to Chan, but anyhow, we'll hand it over to Professor Mary Matthew, who's going to moderate this part of it. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. And first and foremost, let me congratulate all our speakers. It was such a wonderful, excellent presentation. Thank you for these for the things that you all do for volunteering, because without which, when people have no hope, you are the ones who are giving them hope, and it's really wonderful to see that. Now, before I go,
it's been very inspiring, isn't it, Mary?
Inspiring,
very inspiring, yeah. And we have a number of we have a large number from around the world and students, and I think this is an important, very important, inspiring presentations, and the discussions are going to continue to do this in a very important area. Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you. And before we start our discussions, just to all our participants on this webinar, if you do have questions, please put it in the chat box. We may not be able to address all the questions, so I request all our panelists and our speakers to answer. You may directly answer to those who are putting questions in the chat box. The second thing is I would like Dr. Luciana to put her links into the chat box so that those who want to join and want to access it can do so. The other speakers and panelists are also welcome to put any sort of material, literature, or any links in the chat box. Now,
particularly to their respective organizations or their programs, isn't it? So people could get more information, support them if they want to.
Okay, so before because we have only two more speakers who haven't said, who haven't spoken, I will give them a chance to speak before we take the discussions forward. So may I ask Professor Lincoln, would you like to share your thoughts before we go in for the discussion, followed by Flavia after Professor Lincoln?
Okay, it's always a pleasure to be here with you, Dr. Russell, Dr. Derek, Dr. Mary. Congratulations for the excellent panel. Also, my congratulations to Drs. Roland, Ritu, Luciana, and Susie. This amazing speech. And as I said before in other meeting, we regret each people that have died from this pandemic. But in other way, this pandemic should have given us as a whole the opportunity to see ourselves as a species, as a humans, with our problems, with our fears, but also with our strengths. And this cooperation, this voluntariat is one of the huge strengths. And if you look in our past, our successful past as a species, what make us different from other species? First of all, the capacity, like the birds, to modulate the air through our throats, so we can speak, we can communicate to each other by words. Also, with the opposition of the thumb, we free our front members from the necessity of dislocation. So our hands are used in a lot of different ways. Also, what put us different, and it is the roots of our species, is the capacity of collaboration. It's amazing how it's deep in our genetic, in our roots as a species, and also to take care of the sick people. It differs from all mammal species. So this moment now put us in face of what we are, essentially what we are as a species, or essentially in what we are as a human beings. As a president of Brazilian Medical Association, and I would like to say greetings to Deborah Cavalcante present here, that was also a director with me. We provide more than 55,000 equipment of personal protection through our country, and you know Brazil is a huge country, so we are able to distribute it in order to put health workers safer and to preserve them and their families. So it was a way to collaborate. We provide a lot of different ways to improve knowledge. And it also happens not only in Brazil, but also in whole Latin America, and also Portugal and Spain have performed it very, very well, that in the moment I represented. So to be collaborate, to be useful to our society. And Dr. Luciana had wonderful ideas, wonderful initiatives, as I saw the other one. It represents the well-being of the human, the greatness of the human. We found ourselves, and I think we had this opportunity. I hope we don't lose it. We don't, like the great Saramago, Portuguese writer, said, to be collectively blinded again. So let's start open eyes, open minds, respecting ourselves, providing societies that the human rights, respect, freedom, and opportunity are the same for everyone. So it is my final words. Thank you very, very much once again. Congratulations to all. It was always an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Lincoln. Lovely to hear from you. We will bring you back for the panel discussion.
Thank you, Lincoln.
Flavia, would you like to say a few words before we go in for the discussion?
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I'm absolutely honored, and I might even say humbled by everything that's happening here, the amount of information shared and the inspirational nature of this information is absolutely overwhelming for me. Let me start by saying just a few words about myself. My name is Flavia Ghezmerlan. I'm from Romania, and I'm a senior researcher for Zivac Group Central. We are behavioral research and analysis group that gravitates, and our activity gravitates around cognitive and behavioral sciences. We have a focus on psychology and neuropsychology. So what happened during the COVID pandemic gave us a myriad of activities to dabble in. And the project I was planning on talk to you about today, the subject is psychological resilience. When we first created the concept of this project, it is a European project, so we are partnering with several countries. When we first started thinking about this project, we were thinking at the general stressors that first liners, that emergency responders face, and then COVID happened, and we got to understand through research that is very important to comprehend fully the ethical decisions that emergency responders have to deal with every day at the simple level, so just with their daily duties. And then when COVID happened, they are, I think, first responders and even volunteers of non-medical or non-emergency responding nature have to deal with the dilemma of balancing greater good versus individual good. And even though all around, we are from many countries present here, so in each country, in each group, I believe societal and legal specifications impact the way we perceive ethics. But when it comes to the COVID pandemic, I believe that the ultimate choice of decision is a burden that is universally applicable. Whether you are a first liner or whether you are a volunteer, you do have an ultimate choice of decision, and that is very, very difficult to deal with psychologically. And here I would like to also mention what Ms. Susie said about paying attention to further, and other speakers, I'm sorry, paying attention to what other effects this pandemic can have and what's happening around the world. I'm not going to talk too much about the well-known dilemmas, resource allocation, triage of patients, vaccine development, but I would like to bring to your attention the fact that the world is facing a debate between utilitarian ethics and virtue or individual ethics, as they have been mentioned before. And this one is of great impact for the world, for the future of the world altogether. And I do want to also point out what other speakers said before me, that there is a secondary enemy that might be emerging in spite of all the unity that this COVID created. There is a secondary enemy, which is an epidemic, if I may use this word, an epidemic of moral injury that we are all suffering, whether we are frontliners or whether we are just bystanders of what's happening. So we are trying to, our volunteering and our projects, we are trying to mitigate these situations. So I believe that what this pandemic caused for a lot of first responders and a lot of volunteers is that it turned life into a giant and never-ending brain teaser, if you want, where all of a sudden you have to take the responsibility and say which life is worth more than the other. And afterwards, you have to live your full life with the answer you gave. So it's something that you cannot overcome, and it's so important for all of us worldwide to understand this pressure and to understand what consequences this kind of emotional distress can have. So I believe all of us, it's all our duties as volunteers. And I have I would make a little parenthesis. I'm going to hurry. I know I talk a lot. I believe it is very important for all of us to be volunteers, even if we're not part of an NGO, even if we're not part of a structured volunteering organization. We need to voluntarily do good for the others and do good for ourselves. So this is a key point I would like to bring. And to sum it all up very quick, what our project is concerned about is resilience, psychological resilience in first liners, particularly, because the bottom line is right now our heroes need saving. Yeah. So we need to shift the paradigm from expecting them to do their best, to be 24/7 in the ER and making the best medical decisions, to actually each one of us participating in the well-being of this system and of the world. I believe we need to integrate salutogenesis, if you would like, the concept of preparing for health, the concept of being healthy as a society and overall in the idea of volunteering. We can be volunteers even when there's not a crisis. And I think if we manage to do this worldwide, we have high chances of literally making the world a better place.
Yeah. Thank you, Flavia, for that. Beautifully said. Wonderfully said, and it's Dr. Russell's area of interest.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Eudaimonic well-being, right? Called mattering, where you get value by helping others. You feel valued. You give value. It's very important. And they say this is one way of boosting well-being in the time of crisis. Yeah. So that's an important part. Good, very good.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll start a discussion. I just want to start with Dr. Ritu is there, I hope. Dr. Ritu, if you're well enough, is she there? Dr. Ritu, your screen is...
Yeah, she said she'll be there. So.
Okay. So, yeah, there you are. We can't see you, Ritu, but we can hear you. With regard to volunteering and volunteer organization, like you said, Ritu, India is such a large country. And what happened during the first phase of the COVID pandemic was that people were scared and they were frightened, right? So possibly the first phase of volunteering would have been very, very difficult. Subsequently, the second phase probably would have been easier. What were the hindrances that you faced? You did mention that about lack of personal protective equipment and providing, because India had also the problem of migrants, the same what Dr. Luciana said. We had a problem with the migrant laborers and migrant workers. So what were the hindrances that you faced in the initial phase of the pandemic?
Thank you, Dr. The first lockdown, now when I compare it with the second wave, I think the first lockdown was far more easier.
Okay.
There was fear, there was, in fact, stuff was not really available. As I told you, I myself didn't have even a 100 ml sanitizer in my house. Everything just went off. And people didn't have, and there was fear, there was a lot of uncertainty because everybody had a big question mark about the disease, whether it was a health professional or a politician or a common man. And but what I saw that time was, especially when the homebound rural workforce, when they started going on the roads in thousands and in lakhs, we did go, like I was very surprised to see young volunteers and so many volunteers coming on the road at 11 o'clock in the night, at 1 o'clock in the night with cars loaded with food and all, because you could not stuff the people with additional luggage because they couldn't carry it. Yes, we were full protected in the sense we had a face shield, mask, and I used to carry a 2-liter what do you call sanitizer, which I used to spray as if I'm taking a shower every time. But as far as social distancing went, when the first when the groups of Shramiks were migrants were going, we didn't have any social distancing. But that fear wasn't there.
Okay.
Okay, fear which came in second wave, because in second wave, it was like right at the door. And what I understood, like even if I see, like I'm 62, so I fall in that sort of senior category. What I understand is probably the fear of corona is more because one is wondering whether the facilities are available or not. If I fall sick and if I have to go to the hospital, will I get a bed? Or will I get a ventilator, or will I get an oxygen, or whatever? So I think that fear at the back of the mind of patients was more, and it was very true because things were really, really not available.
Yeah, but did you see a dip in volunteers in the second phase?
We had volunteers, but not as many as on ground.
Okay.
Like even most of us were doing on, like all the connectivities were on social media. 80% of connectivities were on social media. 20% of people used to go out wearing double mask and all, because it was scary. It was risky for ourselves as well as it could be risky for the people whom we are meeting.
Yeah.
So even in the first lockdown, and even today, like now, of course, things are mellowed down, but whenever there is a senior citizen at home, we feel somebody, I mean, even to meet friends and all, we stand across the gate. We don't enter inside.
But did you see the same? Because Professor Roland said that they saw more women than men. Was that the same for you?
No, in India, it was all.
It was all, okay.
It was like,
and did you see more young people than old people volunteering?
A lot of old people, like if you say old, above 60, there were few because I was only mostly in Pune and around Pune, but they were like a back-end support. A lot of.
Okay, so you had.
A lot of youngsters went, and then they were like responsible people. Now, when we talk about ethics, it's impossible to follow a guided ethics in such a situation when there is a mass exodus.
Yes, when people are fearing and leaving the state. Yes.
And when things are not available.
Not available, yeah. And they don't have livelihood also. They were not earning. Yeah.
We didn't have masks. Can you believe we used to like request the police and all to open up some shop and take cloth material and then relay the material to some tailor somewhere, and we were worried about and wash it, press it, bring it like and then distribute it, because we were worried whether the mask itself carried the virus. Okay.
And I also like the fact that because you said animals were also taken care of, a lot of animals died during this pandemic.
Yes. Yes.
There were even people who had animals in their houses, left them on the street, thinking that they also would carry the virus, or many couldn't even look after the animals. So that was a sad reality that happened, and that was quite visible.
I think my daughter is there, Dr. Tista. She's a veterinarian, and she used to tell me a lot. I don't know whether she is.
We'll call her in. We'll call her in. Yeah, we'll call her in at the end. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Professor Roland. Professor Roland. Very interesting that you said certain facts regarding women and age. Did you see younger people volunteering and women more than men?
Yeah, this is a global number. And this was observed in, yeah, mostly in all European countries.
Okay.
Young people and small organizations were more reactive also, where they rapidly could be volunteers and try to do something. But it was not so easy to find what to do because of this pandemic, and in French it's confinement, everybody should stay at home. So
Yeah.
this makes things difficult, but yes.
But of course, you would have faced challenges because of the lockdown. So volunteering probably would have been extremely difficult at that stage, right?
Exactly. It was highly complicated, and it was also the problem of hesitation of the authorities and slowness and some scandal with mask who make things highly complicated and developed some fear also.
Okay.
At the beginning, first wave, yeah.
Yeah, but did you have any of the volunteers getting COVID? Do you know the numbers of volunteers who got COVID?
Well, for sure there should have been, but I don't have numbers. No, sorry.
No, you don't have. Okay, all right. So just very interesting facts, Professor Roland. I just want to take it to Dr. Luciana. Did you see the same presentation in Brazil?
Yes, both academic program and all of these initiatives, we have more women than men join, but I don't have numbers.
Okay.
Even students had COVID too, but no one in a severe
COVID.
presentation.
Okay.
No.
All right. So do you have you do know that how many students did get COVID? How many volunteers did get COVID? Right?
No, the number I don't have two, but we had in other programs in Fraternity Without Border, severe volunteers injured and some deaths too, but not linked especially with the volunteer activity. But it's a great question, a research question. Thank you.
Yeah, no, because someone has put something else, which I'll discuss with Flavia. Another thing about this migration and migrant population, you probably have the same problems as India had with people migrating across the border. So what were the challenges and how did you, I mean, because COVID was at the peak at that time. So you probably may not have had that many volunteers to help out in this regard.
We had some issues with health problems in the beginning of the immigration we had in the border, but I believe as we are discussing, quality information is essential.
Okay.
But the main challenge in my point of view has been to deal with denial and financially maintain ongoing projects such as food supply and personal hygiene supplies too. With the pandemic, many godmothers and godfathers are in a difficult financial situation, and sustainability needs to be improved, okay?
Yeah, someone has to provide the funds and the material to make sure that the projects continue, because a lot of people were not earning, even though they may have had the heart to volunteer or to provide, they probably didn't have the financial means to give it. So and that probably is true. Thank you, Dr. Luciana.
Thank you.
Susie, you've already answered the question to the question that we asked regarding were there any volunteers who got COVID? You're mute, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there were no there were no obvious reports of outbreaks among volunteers, although I think for a lot of us it's very difficult to say definitively because the testing regime in the UK in the early days of COVID was non-existent. So actually we didn't really know if people had COVID or not. Okay. But there were certainly shortages of PPE. A lot of the volunteering was hyper-local and quite informal, so quite difficult to know exactly what was happening within the community of volunteers.
Yeah, but I think Welsh generally have this sense of community and sense of volunteering and charity. So probably it was not that difficult when it came to the pandemic, people coming out and helping out. But did you see a dip in at any time during the pandemic period?
I think it's just been different waves. Certainly when there was the first call for volunteers, there was a huge response, including from people who maybe hadn't volunteered before. And you didn't see that again in the second wave. But I think that consistency of community-based volunteering, and also as a national organisation, we haven't seen any dip in interest in volunteering and getting involved. And actually, particularly with younger people, this combined with climate change has led to a real sense of engagement and a need to act. And I think that's something that we felt quite strongly, that desire to stay involved. I think the other thing is people are maybe involved at two levels. So there are more people who are both involved in national activity, who are also more heavily involved in their local community volunteering as well, supporting people local to them, making sure they have food and basic supplies. But also there are a lot of sanctuary groups in Wales. The UK government doesn't treat refugees fantastically. So there's a lot of local sanctuary groups who try to make sure that those communities are supported and have what they need. Okay, were they recognized in any way by the government, the volunteers? So in Wales, yes. So I think we have a very different relationship with the government here in Wales than with the UK government as a whole at Westminster. So yes, for the Welsh government, they met very regularly with the voluntary sector. I think it was maybe once every 2 weeks, the minister, the deputy minister would meet. And that was so good at valuing the community and valuing volunteering and also finding out what they needed and being responsive to them. That's really beautiful that a minister should come to that level and, encourage. And that is what should actually be happening around the world. So it's nice to hear that politicians can be good sometimes. I think they recognise that without volunteers in the voluntary sector, they couldn't possibly get through the pandemic. And I think that's the case around the world. I agree. I wish other governments would really recognise that contribution. So did you see more young and more women in Welsh also, correct? Definitely young. I don't think we had the same gender balance. I think because with young people, we tended to get more of an equal mix. I don't know. I'll find the link for the statistics. No, it's just a question. It's just a question. I mean, because, it looks like generally women are more empathetic, isn't it? Probably that's the reason why they volunteer and do a lot of charity. Thank you. Thank you very much. Flavia, just to the question that is there in the chat box, is there any gender statistics on COVID-related psychosis or phobia? I do not have at this moment the exact statistics, but for whoever asked the question, I'm not going to try to say the name. I'm sorry, I'm very bad with pronunciation. I did leave my personal email. So if you want to get back with this question on my email, I will make sure I provide all the statistics. I don't have them on top of my hand, but we have had a myriad of psychology-related consequences because of this, including psychosis, including phobia, reality distortion, just a myriad of situations. How was it in Romania when it came to volunteering? Were there a lot of people volunteering during the pandemic, or? There was an important number of people volunteering. In Romania, we have a few structures of volunteering that are big and official and everybody knows about, but we do have a sense of community, kind of like what Susie was saying. We do have a sense of community at a micro volunteering level, if you want. And this got activated in a manner that was absolutely fantastic to observe. It was inspiring. I will give you one example. I live in a block of flats. I have some elder neighbors,
And it was just crazy to see how all the young people from, it's a series of block of flats. One day, one would go and take a plate of food. The other day, someone would just sit by the door and talk to the person. How are you? How are you feeling? We personally, for example, at our company, at Zivac, we created a hotline where elder people or isolated people or scared people could call and talk to someone. So it was a movement of forces that was absolutely impressive. And I think both young, old, it was just overwhelming. I don't have stats, but I will try to.
No, no, we don't require the statistics, but just to see that the sense of community, the sense of support is really, it's really good. It's really nice. Thank you, Flavia. Dr. Ritu, is your daughter here? Is your daughter on the?
Mr. Joseph?
Is
No,
she there?
I couldn't see her name. I think she's left.
Right.
She can join back if she's free, and
We'll bring her in later.
Yeah.
Professor Rizwan Taj is there. Professor Rizwan? Is Professor Rizwan Taj there? Professor Rizwan is from Pakistan.
There. I saw his name there.
He's from Pakistan.
He was there in the beginning.
Okay,
I'll just check.
Okay, so we'll just take the discussion forward. Ritu, just to ask you, why do you think people volunteer? What is it that, because you run the organization, what brings people to volunteer for such services, especially in difficult times?
It's like a very complex thing, but I think people just want to do and they probably follow their heart.
Okay.
And especially this time, like I have been doing volunteering even during tsunami and natural disasters and all. But I've seen in India, people just come out, whether organized or unorganized way, but they will come out and they will do whatever they can do. Yeah. And it's a sense of giving, or probably it's like a universal responsibility, what Buddha and Dalai Lama, His Holiness says, that each one wants to do something, but at times people don't know what to do or how to do. And maybe that is the reason. But yes, even if you have daggers drawn when it comes to crisis like this, people have helped.
Okay, right. Thank you. Lovely to hear that.
It's a very internal thing.
Yeah, not just because we're talking about volunteering. Yeah. It's a question because it's a dangerous situation. So just why is it that they volunteer during this time? Professor Roland, what is your thoughts on that? Why do people volunteer?
Well, the answer is quite large and it depends from people to people, but I do share what the previous speaker, Rita, said. Most of them just wanted to help in such a global crisis, a pandemic. It's terrible. And they said, oh, I want to help. But other people also are involved already in NGOs, so it's a regular way of helping. And I also share the view from Lincoln Lopez. He explained exactly how is it good to share with people, and the fact that you have you can help is sometimes good for your well-being and your own health, mental health.
What about children? Did you have any experience, children wanting to volunteer in this pandemic?
Well, I don't know.
You haven't got any experience. I'll ask Susie that, because Susie probably looks like she has children helping. Before that, I'd just like to acknowledge Dr. Geeta. Dr. Geeta is from India, and she's part of our team. So welcome, madam, to the webinar. Susie, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think we work with young people a lot, and they definitely were very passionate to volunteer, especially with digital roles. But I know also when the lockdown lifted a little, children were often involved with their parents in terms of visiting people, to check in on neighbours, to do community litter picking, to stay involved. So we do see a lot of even quite young children engaged in volunteering, and very much.
Is it because of the family? The parents are grooming the
So
children?
Younger children, yes, like my daughter. I think I can hear her. But I think with teenagers, it's coming from them. They see what is happening. They don't want to sit at home feeling powerless. They want to feel like they have power and they can make a difference. And that's really important for their health as well as the work that they do.
Okay, right. Okay, lovely to hear children also volunteering. I'm sure everyone probably has an experience regarding their children or child wanting to help. Thank you very much. Tista is here. Tista? Dr. Derek, you said Dr. Tista Joseph is here.
Yeah, she's there. I just admitted her.
Hello.
Tista,
Okay, so,
if you can hear us, yeah.
Tista,
is it possible for you to switch on your video?
Yeah, just give me a minute, please.
No problem.
You want me to switch my video on?
Yes, if you can, then you come to the front screen. That's the advantage.
Oh, actually, I'm outside. Is it all right if I
we can see the outside, no problem.
All right. Just a second.
Okay, just to tell about Tista, she's a veterinary doctor. She's my daughter. She was 8 when I was diagnosed with cancer, and she was 14 when she came along with me when I was driving the whole of India conducting cancer awareness workshops.
So you have first-hand grooming.
We have a volunteer, yes.
Yes. All right. So Tista, if you want time, I will go to the next speaker and then come back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, I have actually stopped. Just a second.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay. So Tista, your mother says that you've been volunteering and during the COVID pandemic, and it is you're a veterinary surgeon, a veterinary doctor.
Yes.
She's in Thane.
Hello?
No, I think.
Okay, you can switch off your
the
video.
data is...
I think better to switch off your video and speak. That way we don't. It's difficult.
Yeah. I'm a veterinary surgeon.
Okay, so what was your role during the pandemic? I believe you were helping animals.
Is she muted?
No, she's not muted, but I think she's having
No, I think
problems with the reception.
I think the data, the place she stopped, the data maybe.
Yeah. All right. So.
Okay, we can move ahead. I'll let you know when she's back.
She's there, but it's on and off. That's the problem.
Okay. Maybe I would like to say something about animals.
Yes, please. We touched someone's heart, I think. Professor Roland, please.
What we observed in Europe, at least in Belgium, I'm sure that, is that more and more people adopted animals during this time.
Oh, lovely.
It was a way to avoid loneliness.
Okay.
So this was a significant increase in adoption of animals during the pandemic. Yeah.
Okay, so that is definitely a shift in thinking because.
No, Mary, it's interesting. Animals or the dog, the prices have gone about 10 times costly in Australia.
Oh my
you
goodness.
Can't even get big shortage because everyone wanted pets during this lockdown. So there's a lot of scams. People are taking money, not fraud things are happening with selling puppies and so forth. So it's a big issue here.
Okay, so let me ask Dr. Luciana. Dr. Luciana?
Mary, can I just interrupt?
Yeah, Eritu?
Yeah, in India, actually, a lot of pet owners, especially from the lower strata who had lost their jobs or didn't have money and had less money, even the stray dogs which were adopted and even good dogs like the breeds, what you call, a lot of them were left away outside.
Yeah, that's what we observed in India. So it's a different what Professor Roland said and what Susie is saying is quite the opposite, and what Dr. Russell is saying. Yeah, Dr. Luciana, your experience there about, animals and children taking part, their contribution?
Yeah, both of them. Leaving puppies on the street,
Okay.
and the humanitarian projects we have here with people on the streets, homeless. They had lots of dogs and cats, and zoonosis program, governmental programs deal with it too. And it's an issue here because some homeless don't want to go to the equipments because of the puppies. Then we have to treat especially this issue. Here, I agree with the others, Dr. Holland, Lincoln, and Susie, and I believe it's evolutionary skills that we as human beings and the well-being, that the gratitude and the examples in the family are really linked to the children and adolescents to enter in this field of volunteering. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Luciana. Professor Lincoln, your thoughts on children contributing to the pandemic in terms of volunteering?
Yes, I really travel a lot doing to my functions, even if with the pandemic. What thought here, I got COVID-19 myself almost 1 year ago. One of the mission that was voluntary mission. I had no need to go to a hospital, but I lost about 20 pounds. So it's not exactly an easy step of my life at this time, but it happens. Concerning to animals, pets, I can say that we see, like Flavia said, in Romania, both waves. That means a lot of people leaving their animals, generally for fake news, but a lot of movements for adoption, take care, etc. So in both waves. One experience joined to the wonderful one that Luciana have shown us. I'm nowadays spend some time in a little city from Brazil called Ibia, and the community here joined and called and make a process called transformation. It doing most focus on education, supplying a school for generally the poor people, poor young child. And there's a movement of whole community. That means architects, engineers, farmers. One give the house, the other give the paint, the other give the furniture. A lot of local professionals give voluntarily. My wife is a pediatrician. He voluntarily go there and look for the health problems. Myself sometimes. And it's a genuine local movement that show us that the children involved, they do a lot of volunteer work by themselves. They like to be there. They arrive 1 hour, 1 hour and a half in advance in order to be there. And I finish my consideration. Thank you very much, Dr. Holland, that mentioned me. I think there's a huge opportunity to keep our eyes wide open and our minds also wide open to the opportunities and necessities as a society, as a society that we live. Never forgetting that we are different people, we are different aspiration, we are different taste, foods, etc. But it's the beauty of being human, the beauty of a vast and different but very genuine and very good world that we live. Thank you very much, and congratulations once again, Mary.
Thank you, Professor Lincoln. Flavia, I just want to ask you also, because you've written already mentioned about transmission of disease by animals, and one of the fear was that COVID can be spread through animals. So that was true even in Romania, I believe, right?
it was extremely true in Romania. Fortunately and unfortunately, here in Romania, we still have this, let's say, habit of just taking an information that has never been heard before and it's not validated and spreading it around without any factual proof. Absolutely. So this kind of information just spread out like crazy during the first wave of pandemic. It's animals, it's cats, it's bats, it's this, it's that. So we saw an increased wave of abandonment or fear. I wouldn't say animals were mistreated per se, but definitely abandoned. And once we moved to the next subject, which was probably microchip in the vaccine or some of the sorts, people gave up on the idea that cats transmit the disease.
The virus. Okay.
Yeah. So it was on to the next thing. For now, we're good. No new. No new crazy thing
ideas
but we had this issue, but fortunately people got back on track fairly fast.
Yeah, thank you, Flavia.
Thank you.
Tista, you're there, right? Can you hear us? We can see you. We can see you. I hope you're parked safely.
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you can talk. Right, go ahead.
Yeah. So actually similar to what both what Flavia just said and the speaker one before the last one, we did see a lot of abandonment in the initial stages of the pandemic. People were very convinced that their dogs and cats were giving them COVID. Also, there is something called the animal coronavirus, which is a vaccine that we give dogs on routine. It's completely different. It has nothing to do with this particular coronavirus. So a lot of people believed that their animals were not vaccinated because it's not a very common vaccine. So they were convinced that they were able to transmit the disease. So we had this problem a lot. Paradoxically, we also had a lot of people who were at home, bored, and adopted animals.
Okay.
So a lot of people also picked up dogs, particularly more than cats. And at the end of the first wave, we had a lot of abandonment of those animals because people had to start going back to work.
Right.
Yes. So there was just like a lot of fluctuation in what was happening, people's understanding of the pandemic, how long it would be, and how long it would affect them. And people also could not afford as much healthcare for their pets towards the end of the first wave, because I think everyone was hit financially to a lot of extent.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tessa. It's really lovely that a young person has taken up the cause of animals and the support that you're giving your mother. Thank you very much for joining us in the webinar. Drive safely.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we need to wind up, and I'm just going to take last comments from our speakers. I'll start with Professor Roland. Last words before we end our session.
Well, thank you very much. I think it was very interesting and inspiring, and I was very happy to hear all those comments, and there is a lot of hope in what I have heard. This is the take-home message I will have, and I hope everybody will share this view and encourage people to go in that direction.
Yes, thank you very much. Amazing what humans can do if they can support each other. Thank you very much, Professor Roland. Dr. Ritu, last words. Thank you for coming. Please go back and take care of yourself and the fever.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Russell, Dr. Mary, and Derek sir, and all the presenters. Sorry, I could not type also there, but I was just listening, and I think each one in their individual country, there is a different scenario, though the enemy is the same. And volunteerism is something which sometimes comes for some reason, or sometimes it just comes because you feel like doing something and you want to do something and you just get going. At times it needs to be guided also, so that there is no duplication, and or there is no something which goes wrong. And one has to be very safe in this, even if the pandemic has mellowed down a little bit, still.
You have to be careful, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ritu. Thank you. Dr. Luciana, last words?
Yeah, thank you everybody to being here with us till now. Thank you very much, Mary, Professor Russo, Lincoln, and connect, be safe, well-informed, and volunteer. Just to spread love and health. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Dr.
thank you.
Luciana. Volunteer is the last word from Dr. Luciana. Professor Lincoln, you're there? Last words, Professor Lincoln? Yes, there you are.
Yes, please, just unmute. Well, just to congratulate everyone. It is very good for us as the morning in Brazil to spend the hours here. We learn a lot. I've learned a lot of people, and it is very rich for me and for our colleagues here to share this experience throughout the words. And as Luciana said, and a lot of people said, ethics, volunteer, it's human. It's human. So thank you very much, dear Mary, dear Russell, dear Derek. Thank you very, very much. Congratulations to all. We had a very good week and very good future for all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor
Lincoln.
Thank you, Professor Lincoln. Flavia. I keep saying Flavia.
It's okay.
For me, it sounds more beautiful saying Flavia. That's what I'm saying.
I believe in Brazil it's Flavia, right? Because I have some acquaintances that say my name is fairly common there.
Yes, in Brazil it's Flavia, including I have
I'm not
brother
wrong.
call it Flavio. Sorry for interruption. So it's Flavia and Flavio are very common here.
Okay, that's good. So I
think it's Bunasera in Romania.
Yes.
How do you say good night?
It's noapte bună. Noapte bună.
Okay.
And in Portuguese is boa noite.
Boa noite, perfect.
Okay, thank you. So my final words, I guess, on this webinar, and I hope, for me, it's the first one, and I hope it's not the last one, because I absolutely fell in love. I'm trying to take a look at everyone who's here to memorize the beauty. Thank you very much for the invitation. It was absolutely a privilege. I didn't know what to expect, honestly, coming in, but it's such a wealth of information and inspiration, and thank you very much to the ones who have organized this and made this possible, and to everyone who has participated from across the world, evening, morning, afternoon, no matter what. I strongly believe, and we strongly believe, or everybody in our group and our organization, that we are at the turning point in our lives as a world. We need to get together and make things happen, make good things happen. And whether we do it through volunteering or through being more conscious about what surrounds us, of how we throw our trash, how we consume water, how we share our resources. I don't know. We have to get together and make something happen if we really want our future generations to tell our story. We need to leave a better legacy, I guess, and I think we're stronger in doing this together if we unite our minds and our hearts all together from everywhere.
Yeah, that's so true, Flavia. It's the world would be such a better place for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Susie, last but not the least.
Yes. Another huge thank you for the offer to participate. My last message is also one of hope, as there are still lots of bad things and challenging things happening in the world. There are so many more people who are trying to do good things through volunteering in whichever way they want. And I think for me, that opportunity to volunteer and to help and to connect both locally but also globally like this is just such a fabulous opportunity. So yeah, thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Susie. Lovely to hear about your work and the things that you do. I think we shall end with Deborah. Deborah, your hand is up.
Yes.
Deborah always ends our session. Go ahead. Deborah is from Brazil, Dr. Deborah. Yes.
I'm a student from PhD in bioethics in Porto University, and I'm very glad to be here every webinars. And I just want to say that today is a special day. It's very important for us, for me as a doctor and as a woman. Very, very important. And I want to ask you to congratulate my friend, my brother, Lincoln Lopes Ferreira, and Dr. Luciana from Brazil. In their names, I want to congratulate all the panelists. It was an amazing, amazing webinar. Thank you very much, and be safe and well to be here the next webinar in 15 days, I think so.
2 weeks, yes. Yes, Deborah.
2 weeks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Can
Deborah.
I just butt in a bit? I would like
Yes,
to
Rita.
add something
Yes.
else.
Yes, Rita.
I read a quote which was there in my childhood, and I think a lot of us had read it by Miss Stephen. It says, "I shall pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness, then I can show to any human beings or living beings. Let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall or I may not pass this way again." Thank you.
Beautiful, very wonderfully said. It's a nice closing statement, Ritu, and thank you for those words. Very encouraging.
It's by Stephen Grillet, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. And to all our students, I hope you've been listening to all our panelists and speakers. Take hope that there are good people who do good things in spite of what we are seeing around us. And stay safe and stay positive. So with that, I'd like to thank all our panelists, speakers, and of course my partner in this webinar, that's Dr. Derek, and of course, Dr. Russell, for the opportunity. Thank you very much, Dr. Russell. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Derek. It's been a wonderful 120 minutes or so that we've spent, very worthwhile. And I, before listening to all what you've all said, particularly Ritu's last, the path, we only pass, we won't pass again. And so let us do good. But I also bring back this the thought that, the facts that what we hear again, that this volunteering brings a sense of solidarity. And that's what we're all trying to do. And that's Article 13 of the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights. And bringing back the what I just spoke about, mattering, which is referred to as the eudaimonic well-being. Eudaimonic well-being, the well-being or mattering, which refers to the perception that you have a role in this world, and you are being valued and you're giving value to others. But importantly, the evidence that we see, while it's general good, there's also better self-esteem, better self-acceptance, and better mental health associated. So there is a good note that we end all on positive note, that ultimately volunteering, from the scientific evidence, it does ultimately help not only solidarity, not only eudaimonic well-being, but positive psychological health or mental health, which is again an important part in this pandemic. We have that's an area that is affected all over. Mental health has become, in Australia, everywhere. We're having a big issue there. So once again,
Dr. Russell, just to acknowledge Professor James. James is there, and Professor Peter Mosey.
I wanted to
they all have been our ex-speakers and panelists. Lovely to see all of you.
Yeah, Professor James, Jim James, who's from the disaster, the public health disaster from the United States, the president. We will have another session with them, and Peter Mosey, Professor Peter Mosey from Dundee. Again, all of you are involved with our program one way or the other. So thank you all for being there. So let me now thank all the others there. I think we've had Arun Mehra, many of our colleagues, Shubham, who looks after the student part of it. So thank you all for contributing, continuing this program. We have
Karen is there. Karen is there.
Yes,
Karen,
from Brazil.
Brazil, yeah.
Yeah, and importantly, that this is the 46th one webinar that we've had, and we come back together, all of us, as you all found it to be inspiring, very nice to see all of us having very similar, a lot of things similar, isn't it? That we've come, although we are all from different parts of the world, joined together. I'm down under. We've got some of you on top and some in the middle of this globe. And we all share, we're all in this together. We're all going through the pandemic. And so this is a good positive note to end. And so I thank all of you once again, all the panelists, the speakers, for the outstanding presentations. And we will be revisiting this area again, as we have done in some of the other areas, to look at what you've learned and what you gained, and we will have more things to learn. So till then, again, thank you very much. All of you are part of this program. We'll be in touch with you. And so stay safe and stay well till we meet you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank
bye.
you, Derek.
Bye,
Thank you,
Karen.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Professor
Bye-bye.
Lincoln. Bye, Dr.
Thank you.
Luciana.
Thank you all. Thank you, Lincoln.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye, Karen.
Bye, Flavia. Bye, Deborah.
Thank you. Yes, thank
Hope
you.
to see you all. John,
Bye-bye,
good to see you.
Susie.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Bye,
you.
John.
And
Bye,
get
everyone.
well soon, Ritu ma'am. Hope you recover soon. Thank you for being here till the end.
Yeah,
Really
thank
means
you,
a lot.
Ritu.
Thank you, Testa.
She must be driving now.
I have.
Sunday off.
We
And I
even learned.
thought,
We learned about even how different the dogs are being treated in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
yes, that was like people adopting. But India is very different. We ourselves, there's people who don't have food.
Yes, here it's become expensive to have a dog, and a lot of scams are there. People were pretending to be breeders and collecting the money, and now I saw that there's also a new plane service because we don't have flights due to the lockdown. So there's a service only to move the dog from the puppies from breeders and so forth. Just started. So you can imagine how much they value their pets here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And all the best to all of you.
Thank you, everyone. Good day, good evening, good night to Dr.
Good night.
Russell especially. And hope
yes,
to see you all.
It's
soon.
already
Thank you for-
it's Monday here.
It's a Sunday evening and today is Raksha Bandhan.
Thank you very
all.
much.
We'll
Goodbye,
see you
everybody,
again.
and looking forward to communicating one way or another.
Yes, we will.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Flavia, I think there was some miscommunication. You came late, always, but we shall be in touch. There's a few interesting things that I'd like you to be involved with.
Yes, I apologize for that. I will publicly apologize. I responded to some emails.
That's okay.
extremely
Yeah,
late.
that's okay.
But
That's
I was
okay.
traveling around. That's why. Thank you again.
And see you again. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.